Hey, it's News from Heaven. Today we're talking about how there's 3 states that we pass through after death. And, of course we want to know about that. So what are they and why 3? And how can you say there's a universal thing that everybody goes through after death? You know how many different kinds of people. So we got to get a sense of what's the nature of the states. But come on, let's figure out, how does the next life start? What note do we begin the permanent, the purpose of our journey we began on earth? How's that all go down? That's what we're going to look into today. You can follow along. We're downloading Heaven and Hell, and what we're going to try to do through all this, if it ain't a means to an end, and if the end isn't good, we shouldn't be doing it. And the end that I see, why are we going through this Swedenborg stuff in the first place, is that what I've found is that if we can build up this view of the world, it is better than the default. Better than what I had before. And that it seems to be, as we unpack all these different concepts, even about, how does life continue? What does that mean for us now? That it brings a sunnier, more loving picture, and actually does amazing things to dissipate all the agitating elements of our mental makeup. Let's see if we can do that today. We begin Heaven and Hell 491, our first state after death. What happens after we die? There are 3 states that we pass through after death before we arrive in either heaven or hell. And I wanted to put this before we arrive in either heaven or hell in the title as well, but there are just limits on how long the title can be, because we already got a problem. Heaven and hell, it's just like old school, and it's judgmental, and it's scary, and how are we going to have that stuff in there? So I don't know. We got to figure out how can we square this with the idea of that sun I was just drawing and love, and how is this an upgrade on the picture of life? I don't know. We've already got some work to do. The first state is one of more outward concerns. The second is one of more inward concerns, and the third is one of preparation. Okay, now we're starting to hone in on what a universal process. Because you couldn't say we all have a state. The first state, you're quiet, and then you're on a balcony. You can't you can't tamp it down to these specific instances or specific experiences. But if you look at the broad categories we're in, the first is one of more outward concerns. The second is one of more inward concerns. And the third is one of preparation. So everybody has an outer part, a more day-to-day, superficial, the self we put on for others. We all have what's really in us. And I'd say that there's times when we're aware of what this is, but there's other times when there's this whole mysterious world that's inside us, and you kind of can see to a horizon of sorts. Like, I know what I want, but why was I really doing this thing? Who am I really? Am I myself on my best days or my worst days, or a mix? Is there some potential in me that's, we don't know. It's like there's a place in us we can't see past. So there's some inward stuff that we probably get, but there's other stuff that's waiting to be discovered. And that stuff all together is who we really are, rather than the superficial, the shell that's around that. And the third is one of preparation. Yes, preparation for heaven or hell. We go through these states in the world of spirits, which, if you haven't heard the word, you got the world of spirits here. You got heaven up here. You got hell down here. And this is where we make our preparation. Okay, all right, that's fine. Some people, however, do not go through these states, but are either raised into heaven or cast into hell immediately after their death. First, I'm going to start explaining this problem here with a Venn diagram. So what I want to draw here is, this is all of human will. This is everything that people want in life, okay? And over here is obscure history of offTheLeftEye video programming. as you can see, there's absolutely no overlap here. Nobody wants to hear about the obscure history of off-the-left-eye programming, but I'm going to tell you it because back in the day, I've gone over this passage on this channel before, I'm pretty certain. You don't have to go back and check the tapes, but when we started our show, Swedenborgian Life, we were reading through this part of this book, and I remember, unless it's a wonderful false memory, again, having to deal with this very harsh-seeming statement. And this is actually a great opportunity to talk about the whole Swedenborg experience. Because you can read this and very much feel like, this is a dime a dozen judgmental Christian view of the world that's been around forever, the thing that scared us into falling into line. And how is this anything good? And he sure does write it just like, look, you can go without a trial or without any kind of chance to defend yourself. Right away, you're cast into hell, and hell is a big problem. So what's it mean? And I thought, because knowing the full context of everything Swedenborg says, I mean, he's very clear. I mean, if you're familiar with our channel at all, you know that, look, there is this whole dynamic. Heaven and hell are actually, they're states of mind. Like, heaven is loving everything that's good and loving everything that's true. Hell is the love and the pleasure in what's evil and false, and that nobody's thrown anywhere. We longingly, lovingly, with our own arms open, run to what we treasure. And he even says at other points that it's people's own will to go towards what's negative and false, throwing them in, but it can look like they're being cast headfirst. So I just wonder, why can't we just say that everywhere? I guess it will be too long. But it also got me thinking about what Swedenborg describes as the appearance. That there's a fundamental thing in life where there's how life seems, and then there's how life actually is. And that we're often in the outer sort of appearance level of things. And this, you can get really tangible examples of this. Sorry, Heaven, I'm going to erase you. You get really tangible examples of this. For example, let's say you are standing on the earth, and that's the crooked horizon line. And look at this. The sun is moving, and it's smaller than the earth, and it's about to sink below the horizon here. It seems like that's what's happening, but that's not actually what's happening. That would be the most simplistic level of there's an appearance, but the truth is earth goes around the sun, whatever. We know. So you can extend that to every single level of life. And once it starts to get into more of there's an appearance that life is chaos and that we're not being cared for, and that life is unfair. And it just really does seem like that. And Swedenborg is saying there's a truth underneath, that everything is, down to the most minute detail, engineered so that, sure, or I'm not going to say we're not suffering now, but that the end product, the end state that we get in is so wonderful, and it becomes a permanent state that it's actually, this is as some old medieval philosopher or somebody said, this is the best of all possible worlds. And constantly we have this, you don't even have to take a Swedenborgian angle on it. There's an appearance and there's a truth. Somebody can seem like they're a certain way, but they're really a different way. There's an appearance that other people are less essential to life than we are, because it seems like, wow, we feel really potently about ourselves, and we go and life moves with us, whereas other people are just kind of bit players coming in and out of our stream of consciousness. But that's just an appearance. We know, if we step back and think about it and converse with each other about it, that all of us are equally the center of existence, and that really none of us is, and that you have to rise above your own preconceptions about people or your own self-serving worldview to understand what's really going on. So there's always this appearance and this truth that we're grappling with. And so we find it when we're surfing through the pages of Swedenborg, that sometimes things are written, because it's not that he's here saying something that you couldn't see. You can go into the spiritual world and see this people, a visual depiction of being raised into heaven or cast into hell. But that's the outer appearance. The inner truth is that people are going where they want to go, and sometimes that's even manifested as this appearance. Was it unnecessary? Was that tangent useful? The world will never know. Leave in the comments. The people immediately raised into heaven are ones who have been regenerated and thus prepared for heaven in this world. Actually, you can be doing your homework now when we push away what we know to be evil and false. And it's actually much easier to get it done here than have to do a bunch of work in the spiritual world, but it's there if you need it. People who have been regenerated and prepared to this extent need only to slough off their natural uncleanness, no offense, along with their bodies, and are immediately taken into heaven by angels. I have seen people taken up an hour after their death. And so it's not arbitrary. It's not that there's some people that this person is just person number one in the eyes of God. Maybe they did a lot of good propaganda for God, and so God's like, hey, you did a favor for me, you're up. Everybody, angels, heaven, everyone's trying to raise everybody up as fast as possible. But there's a process. It's a process that has to be gone through. That's why we have to have a life in the first place, because we've got to work through this process. Just like the physical body has to go through all the stages of development, so we have to go through this process, and you can't skip steps in it. Just like think of trying to have a person form and they skip the state when they go from a blastocyst to whatever's after a blastocyst. You have to go through it to build the next state. That same thing is going on in our spirits. On the other hand, people who have been profoundly malicious but have outwardly worn a guise of goodness, and watch out, because we'll do that ourselves at times. People who have therefore filled their malice with guile and used goodness as a means of deception are cast directly into hell. So why that? Why is that the opposite of people who have been prepared for heaven? I have seen people like this cast into hell immediately after their death. One of the most deceitful went head first and feet last. For others, it is different. Why is that the difference? Why is that the opposite? People who have been profoundly malicious but have outwardly worn a guise of goodness. People who have therefore filled their malice with guile and used goodness as a means of deception. All of hell, all of this idea of hell. Again, it's worth familiarizing yourself. And I never know how deep into Swedenborg's worldview anyone is watching. So if you hear me saying things that really disturb you, it could be because the ideas are whack, but it also could be that there's not that filled in piece of what does Swedenborg mean when he says hell. Hell is entirely a mechanism by which you can take a person who has decided and chose and embraced loving something that hurts is deadly. For example, using a guy like, hey, I'm going to manipulate you because I'm going to prey on your instincts to try to be good and use that to deceive you and harm you in some way. If somebody loves that and does it, hell is a way to actually give them the best quality of life you can have when you've made that the center of your life. It comes with these natural side effects because it's not cool. But also, we can't have, just because you chose that, this next person down the line, we can't have you deceiving them and destroying them and destroying their spirit. So, sorry, you can't hang around in this open forum. You have to be in a place where there's limited harm that you can do. There are also people who are sent off into caves right after their death. Yeah, spiritual caves. And in this way are segregated from people in the world of spirits. They are alternately brought out and sent back in. These are people who have treated their neighbors maliciously under the pretext of civic behavior. So whatever that is means you can come out once in a while, but you can't be out all the time. Again, because you're a danger to people's ability to live. There are few such people, though, compared to the number of people who are kept in the world of spirits and prepared there for either heaven or hell, according to the divine plan, and according to these three stages. This whole section is how do we get to a place from where we are now where we know we want hell or we want heaven. As to the first state, the state of more outward concerns, okay, here we go. Now we're finally getting into a description of the first state. We arrive in this immediately after our death. Everyone has more outward, so we go from talking big picture and where we go and end up and all that to what's going on inside of us. How is the mind structured? Everybody has more outward and more inward aspects of the spirit. We use the outer aspects of our spirit to adapt our bodies in the world, especially our faces, speech, and behavior, to our interactions with other people. So this would be voluntary stuff. Swedenborg describes, the spirit. The spirit in you is the part that feels happy, and that's what prompts the body to smile. That's a really simplified or immediate correspondence, right? So the outer aspects of our spirit you can intend and use your asking mechanism. If you think about what it is to move your body, you just, okay, I want to move my arm, and it's just so seamless that it happens. That is the spirit interacting with the body in some complex way, according to Swedenborg. And we can use this outer aspect of our spirit to say, I'm going to smile and nod when I don't really feel like I'm smiling and nodding. That is different than the sort of involuntary, like, oh, I love this, so I'm doing it. I don't even realize I'm doing it. That would be sort of outer versus inner aspects of the spirit. The more inward aspects of our spirit are the ones proper to our intentions and consequent thought, which rarely show in our faces, speech, and behavior. We are trained from infancy to present ourselves as friendly, benevolent, and honest, and to conceal the thoughts of our own intentions. It's kind of a sinister view of us, but making the point that whether or not they're good and it doesn't even have to be for, is it good or bad, but just, can you trust people to, it's a wild world, as would Cat Stevens say. We are trained from infancy to present ourselves as friendly, so we acquire a habitual lifestyle that is outwardly moral and civil, no matter what we're like inwardly. You can have this generally, not everybody, but generally you feel like, yeah, I want people to think I'm pretty good. And it could be because I really care about that, or it could be because I'm using this to manipulate. And it's going to be a mix in any of us all the time. The work of regeneration is to learn to love that which is honest and fair and true. So I've been thinking about, what does that mean? Because you can say, I don't want to do something bad because some religious system told me I'm not allowed to do it, and I don't want to get on the wrong side of God. Weren't they just talking about hell and stuff above there, and I don't want to be seen as some kind of freak or something. Right? That's one way, and it's fine. But to really, take that stuff out of the spirit, it's up to life, our interaction with life, to show us like, oh, I really don't like this. I think we all have things that we genuinely see as I do not like it when people are like, treat each other in this particular way. That thing, that action, that spirit, that intent is not good. And so when we get that kind of living aversion to something, that's really, to me, that feels like that's really the core of the work of. And sometimes we have to get there by initially saying, well, I see the appeal in trying to do this negative thing, but I'm going to push it away. But eventually we get to the point where we're like, I wouldn't even want to do that to someone. And sometimes when we've been harmed in a particular way, that really wakes us up to like how damaging that can be. And we, from that, are able to campaign in ourselves and in the world against it. As a result of this habitual behavior, we scarcely know our own inner natures and pay no attention to them. Our first state after death is like our state in this world, since we are then similarly involved in outward concerns. We have similar faces, voices, and character. We lead similar moral and civil lives. It's actually, some people don't know. Oh, shoot. I was just going to hit you with this really fascinating Swedenborg tidbit that, did you know Some people don't even know they've died, but that's exactly what he says in the next sentence. This is why it still seems to us as though we were in this world unless we notice things that are out of the ordinary and remember that angels told us we were spirits when we awakened. Oh, right. The state of being a spirit is really pretty in the present, so you can actually, oh, right, I woke up and I'm in the other world. So the one life carries on into the other, and death is only a passage. Since this is what we are like as spirits immediately after our life in the world, our friends and people we had known in the world then recognize us. Spirits perceive who we are not only from our faces and voices, which in this first state are pretty similar, but also from the aura of our life when they come near. And some people wonder, will people I know recognize me if I have changed? Yeah, you have a distinctive fingerprint. Who you are radiates out from you, and people know you, but you could never slip through the cracks there. In the other life, whenever we think about someone, here we go. I know we're running out of time, but like this fascinating sort of, I want to say like holodeck, like on a, you think of some sci-fi show where you scan some individual and all these details about them come up. In the other life, whenever we think about someone, we call up that individual's face in our thought. So, oh yeah, there's Joe. That's what Joe looks like. And many details about her or his life. Oh yeah, Joe likes this. Joe did this. Joe thinks like this. I remember Joe. Like, oh, this collage of like everything we have associated with them. And when we do this, the other is called to us. That's like how you reach out and Skype someone. Things like this happen in the spiritual world because thoughts are shared there and because space is not what it is in the natural world. This is why as soon as we arrive in the other life, we are all recognized by our friends and relatives and by people we had known in one way or another. Further, we talk with each other and continue to see each other in keeping with our friendship in the world. I have heard many people who had just come from the world overjoyed to see their friends again, and their friends overjoyed that they had arrived, to say the least. And there we have this opportunity to reunite with people, and there's this promise that we are going to be taken through a process. And a process with, unless we fight it tooth and nail, the process is designed to clear up this negative stuff. Why are we such a mix? Why do we have to deal with, oh, sometimes I feel happy, and sometimes I feel unhappy and twisted up. Sometimes I feel like some people deal with, am I a good person or not? Sometimes I feel like I'm a good person. Other times I can't believe what's coming out of my mouth. And other times it feels great. Like all this good, I see all this goodness and truth in the world. We're such a mix here. And it's not that fun, is it? I mean, maybe for you. For me, it's not that fun. I don't like having to constantly try to struggle to maintain the kind of state I want to be in, and there's a lot of things that I see are the kinds of things I want in my mind and in my life, but it's sometimes all this other unwanted stuff is coming in. This process with the three states in the world of spirits is designed to, through sort of sifting us to outward concerns, then to inward concerns, then preparation, what that does is allow for the removal of all this implanted negative stuff that we kind of picked up like barnacles on a sea turtle that does a little fish pick off on the reef. So we get all our barnacles off, and then the state of mind that is heaven really is made possible by clearing that up and allowing and making the space for the good things that we have to serve as vessels for this heavenly joy that comes in and just absolutely expands everything good we've ever felt or thought outward like you wouldn't believe, and that increase keeps going forever and ever. And that's what this process is designed to kickstart in us. And that's the news from heaven. How do you like it? Anything in there you feel like you can take out and use practically this week? Leave comments. We would love to hear from you. Come join us, hang out with us for a whole weekend to dive into this stuff in depth and see what we can use to upgrade our life. That's the Off the Left Eye experience. Check out links and things there for more. Thank you. I really love talking through this stuff, and I hope that this has been just a good meditative reminder that there's something more, and we're trying to seek it out and metabolize it and live it. And I hope it arms you to go out and be good people.